She is a woman having an affair, yet throughout the entire night, she remains utterly unmoved. Her whole being is lifeless as dead wood in cold ashes, because she has become certain that the lover beside her has told a colossal lie, and most likely, he is the one who murdered her husband. However, gripped by fear, she can only endure the humiliation in silence. All night long, she waits for a chance to escape, until deep into the night.
I'll go get her something to drink, shall I?
She quietly slips out of the room, quickly changes her clothes, takes a pistol, lifts her sleeping son, and rushes toward the garage through the rain. Stranded on an isolated island, her only destination now is the lighthouse control room several kilometers away, where the only radio on the island capable of contacting the outside world is located. At the same time, the man lying in bed glances at the time, then turns over, gets dressed, as if he has something urgent to attend to, but just as he approaches the window, he catches sight of the woman starting the car. Fortunately, at the very last moment, the engine roars to life, and the woman narrowly escapes from the man she has known for only 3 days. However, the woman does not yet realize that the lover who terrifies her to the point of trembling has an even more horrifying identity. He is a top spy of Nazi Germany, and her desperate flight through the stormy night is not merely a tangled affair of love. Behind her lies a covert battle that will influence the course of World War II. The story begins in Britain in 1940. In this year, Nazi Germany sweeps across Europe, and with the surrender of France, Britain becomes the last stubborn stronghold of resistance. Thus, Hitler directs all his fury toward this island. The unyielding British mobilize their forces, vowing to resist the powerful German offensive to the very end. But what they do not know is that within the city of London, a pair of eyes is coldly watching everything that unfolds. This man, Faber, appears to be a railway worker, but in truth, he is a top Nazi spy hidden in London, codenamed Needle. He is the most concealed and trusted asset in Hitler's hands, and at the same time, the target that MI5 has been tracking for years. For many years, he has continuously transmitted highly valuable intelligence to Berlin without ever failing. However, on this day,
What are you doing?
Listen to me.
this stiletto dagger is his signature weapon. He strikes with extreme speed, targeting the vital spot between the ribs, killing with a single blow. He deals with the landlady's body, unhurried yet efficient. Then, calmly, he sends the intelligence he has gathered today to Berlin. But this time, an unexpected incident exposes his trail once again to MI5, forcing him into a prolonged period of silence, until the year 1944 arrives. By a riverside, disguised as a fisherman, Faber once again receives a coded message from Berlin, ordering him to meet an emergency contact at 9 p.m. to receive the highest directive. To ensure safety, Faber habitually arrives early and lies in wait at the meeting point. Sure enough, he notices something unusual. As the contact appears, a similar signal light flashes from a building not far away. Clearly, the contact's movements are being monitored, and the mission has been exposed. Yet at this moment, Faber does not choose to retreat. He decides to take the risk to obtain the top-secret order from Berlin. In the end, Faber tails the contact back to his residence.
Someone's in with Muller.
Good. We'll give them 60 seconds and then go in.
The Fuhrer wants you to reassess the strength of General Patton's army in East Anglia.
It's invasion strength. They have the aerial photographs. General Patton is ready to invade Europe at any time, at Pas-de-Calais.
Hitler's astrologer believes attack will be at Normandy.
A signal in the usual way.
No, absolutely no further radio contact. You have to take photographs. You must deliver them personally to the Fuhrer.
After obtaining the specific contents of the directive, Faber acts decisively, brutally killing the exposed contact and cutting off any chance of intelligence leakage. Precise calculation is the fundamental quality of a top spy. Less than 2 minutes after he kills the contact, agents of MI5 break through the door, but all that remains for them is a corpse and an open window. Faber has vanished without a trace. A few days later, on a remote waterway in southeastern England, a man who looks like a tourist steps out of a leisure yacht. He is dressed in classic British countryside outdoor attire, a flat cap, a neck scarf, a tweed jacket, a backpack, and a walking stick. This man is Faber. Soon, he disappears into the bushes. Less than 1 kilometer from this location lies the military site that Berlin has ordered him to verify in person. At the moment Faber climbs to a higher vantage point and looks out. His heart trembles, but soon a look of satisfaction appears on his face. A vast military buildup stretches before him like a curtain across the horizon. Then, with composure, Faber cuts through the barbed wire and sneaks into the base. He needs to conduct close reconnaissance, survey landing conditions, and record everything on film, because the intelligence he sends must not contain the slightest doubt. This has always been his standard for himself, and it is precisely for this reason that he has earned Hitler's deep admiration and trust. But at this moment, an accident reveals a shocking secret. As he carefully examines a propeller lying on the ground, he realizes that all the military equipment is nothing more than full-scale models. In an instant, an unprecedented military deception operation is exposed. This is the Allied operation meticulously planned over many years. Operation Fortitude. This operation is designed to convince Hitler that the Allied landing in Europe will take place at Calais, rather than the long-anticipated Normandy. To achieve this, the Allies construct an entire set of military deployments in southeastern England that are realistic enough to deceive anyone, using a large number of fake military assets to fabricate an army group poised for battle. Until Faber infiltrates the base, no one has been able to present any reason to doubt this ruse. As a result, Hitler has already concentrated elite German forces at Calais. In other words, as long as Operation Fortitude holds until the day of the landing, the Allies will have secured most of their chances of victory. Now, the intelligence obtained by Faber places this operation on the brink of collapse. In other words, if Faber successfully delivers this intelligence to Berlin, not only will the Allied deception completely fail, but the Normandy landings will turn into a massacre. Thus, sending out the intelligence as quickly as possible becomes an urgent mission of the highest priority. But just as Faber is withdrawing, he runs straight into a patrolling soldier. Faber does not hesitate. He swiftly eliminates the obstacle. However, shortly after, the contact responsible for transmitting his intelligence is immediately captured by MI5. Meanwhile, Faber narrowly escapes the pursuing British agents, but when it is discovered that Faber is carrying earth-shattering intelligence, the entire MI5 is shaken. This man must be stopped. This is the order from the top, to capture Needle at all costs. And so, with top-secret intelligence in his possession, Faber quickly becomes the subject of a nationwide manhunt. To reduce risk, he is forced to abandon the faster options of ports and airports, because his documents would certainly be checked at those checkpoints. In the end, he chooses a northbound train, heading straight for the town of Banff in Scotland. Yet even so, he encounters an MI5 interception and inspection along the way. With no other choice, Faber raises his stiletto once again, kills, and jumps off the train to escape. From that point on, Faber can only adapt to circumstances, because he has completely deviated from his original plan. But no matter what, his final objective remains fixed. He first steals a motorcycle to leave the remote countryside, then hitches a ride, and eventually arrives in Banff. To avoid drawing attention, he keeps a low profile and slips into a cinema, waiting for the right moment to set out to sea. But unexpectedly, the theater is showing an anti-Nazi film, which makes Faber feel an even greater sense of urgency. So that very night, he takes the risk of stealing a fishing boat and sails toward the designated waters. At this point, after a long escape, he has finally shaken off the pursuing British agents. The moment the fishing boat leaves the harbor, he cannot wait to turn on his portable radio and sends a rendezvous signal to a German submarine. He thinks all that remains is to wait quietly, but no one expects that in the middle of the night, a violent storm suddenly erupts at sea and grows increasingly fierce. Even more deadly, under the assault of wind and waves, the boat's only navigation compass fails. Soon, the fishing boat drifts off course like a leaf in the vast ocean. In the end, amid towering waves, the boat crashes violently into the reefs, and Faber is instantly swallowed by the surging sea. Fortunately, in this desperate situation, he clings tightly to a rock, and at the same time, a powerful sense of mission ignites an extraordinary will to survive. He must deliver the intelligence, and he must present it in person to the Führer, because he cannot fail the expectations placed upon him. At last, he exhausts his final strength, crawls onto the shore, and is swallowed by the stormy darkness of the night. However, he never imagines that from the moment he steps ashore, his life has truly entered a countdown. This place will become the end of his journey, because after narrowly escaping death, he knocks on a door he should never have touched. On this stormy night, a couple is awakened from their sleep by a dull crashing sound. The woman opens the door and finds Faber lying on the ground. Moments later, the man follows her, but from the way he moves downstairs, it is clear that he has a disability in his leg. Just like that, Faber is saved by this kind-hearted couple. After changing out of his soaked clothes and drinking a cup of hot coffee, Faber quickly regains some strength, though he is still weak. At this moment, the man asks, "Were there others on the boat? Did you not hear the weather forecast before setting out? Did you contact the Coast Guard?" The man wants to know more, but is stopped by his wife. Then, the woman helps Faber to rest in her son's bed. Afterward, the couple exchange their thoughts. They both agree that Faber is not a sailor. Judging from both his appearance and his clothing, the husband also expresses that he cannot understand going out to sea in such terrible weather. Soon after, the husband leaves the house to go to the lighthouse control room to find his friend, which is also the only place he frequently visits on the island. And so, utterly exhausted, Faber sleeps for an entire day, but when he wakes up, something happens that is both fortunate and unfortunate. As he pushes open the door, he unexpectedly runs into the woman, who has just finished bathing the child and has not yet dressed. In that moment, they stare at each other, speechless. Back in his room, Faber straightens his clothes and puts the roll of film back on his person. At that moment, a strange smile appears on his face. Before dinner, the three finally introduce themselves properly, but Faber gives a false name. After that, David chats briefly, then excuses himself, claiming he is unwell.
Look, I'm going to bed. My back's playing up.
He also asks Lucy for 2 doses of sleeping pills. Seeing the trace of displeasure on her husband's face, Lucy finds herself unable to say anything. After seeing her husband off, Lucy is left alone to face the man before her. At a loss, she blurts out an invitation for Faber to have a glass of brandy. Perhaps it is the loneliness of living on an isolated island for so long. But at this moment, Lucy begins to open her heart and talk with Faber. 4 years ago, she and her husband left London and came to Storm Island because of a car accident.
Thank you.
Cheers, Adrian. Can I help?
David, be careful. You're not in your Spitfire yet.
That accident destroyed everything they had. David lost both legs and went from a spirited Royal Air Force pilot to a man bound to a wheelchair for life. And to escape reality, Lucy accompanied David in leaving the familiar city of London, retreating to this remote and desolate island. For years, their only connection to the outside world has been the supply boat that comes once a week, and the island's only neighbor, the lighthouse keeper Tom. Unknowingly, as they hold their glasses, their conversation becomes deeply personal, but Faber, who appears casual, is in fact probing with every word.
What do you do if there's an emergency?
Well, there's a radio transmitter at Tom's cottage, but that's really more to do with the lighthouse.
Through his speech, Faber shapes himself into a broad-minded, tolerant, and caring mature man. However, for Lucy, who has lived in loneliness for years, this strikes deeply at her heart. She is young and kind, longing for warmth, yet slowly worn down on this isolated island, facing a cold and hopeless marriage with no way out. At this moment, all the misfortune surrounding Lucy begins to stir under Faber's subtle and persistent probing and gentleness. In the end, her tense muscles lose control and she crushes the glass in her hand.
You've hurt yourself.
I'm awfully sorry.
Even the slightest bit of care and tenderness is magnified infinitely at this moment, because she has gone too long without being noticed, too long without feeling respected and cared for. That night, Lucy falls for Faber, crossing the line she should have upheld. Early the next morning, they walk along the seaside. Faber tells Lucy that he is actually a writer, hoping to create a sense of stability in their relationship. In truth, this is a key trait of a top spy. He always examines himself from the perspective of others and resolves any possible doubts immediately. Lucy believes him, and as he wishes, she even tells David, who had his suspicions. By noon, the three sit at the table peacefully, but Lucy feels uneasy because of something her husband says.
I hope Lucy didn't keep you up too late last night.
Afterward, David claims he needs to go to the lighthouse control room to help Tom repair the radio equipment. In this regard, David is a professional. After all, he comes from the Royal Air Force. More importantly, this time he shows an intention to invite Faber along. Faber does not refuse and secretly feels pleased. because the lighthouse control room has a radio, which is exactly what he wants to get close to, but he does not realize that this trip will be one from which there is no return. Ever since Faber stepped into this house, his actions have aroused David's deep suspicion. What kind of person would go out to sea on a stormy night? And what kind of person could fall into the ocean and survive? Especially that night, when David discovers the film on him. A soldier's instinct is fully awakened, so David decides to uncover the truth in his own way. When the car arrives outside the lighthouse control room, David signals for Faber to go inside and check if anyone is there. Faber naturally does not refuse and walks into the control room alone. He sees Tom drunk and still asleep, but the transmitter on the table catches his attention. As he calculates his next move, he turns back toward the door, but the moment he steps outside, he sees David aiming a gun at him. "You lied to me. You said you had no interest in aircraft, but in truth, you are very interested. Give me the film. I found it in your clothes this morning. Now give me the film and come over on your knees."
Give me the film.
After a brutal struggle, David, despite his explosive strength, is ultimately killed by Faber due to his disability, and his body is thrown off the cliff into the sea. However, as Faber turns around, he sees Lucy in the distance approaching with her son. Getting closer and closer, without hesitation, Faber steps on the accelerator and drives toward them. He tells Lucy that her husband is drinking with Tom again and that he will pick David up after dinner. This not only successfully prevents Lucy from approaching the scene, but more importantly, lays the groundwork for his return that night to use the radio, because from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. is the time when German submarines receive signals, but he does not expect that his lie will soon be exposed by a careless remark of his own. As night falls, Faber keeps calculating his plan, and before he knows it, his expression grows heavy. Unexpectedly, Lucy misinterprets this. She thinks Faber feels guilty about their affair. So, kind-hearted Lucy embraces Faber once again. Lost in passion, they forget everything, but for Faber, this becomes a fatal mistake. A master spy who excels in calculation is defeated by his own desire. It is not until Lucy's young son pushes open the door and calls for his mother that Faber is startled awake, while Lucy remains asleep. At this moment, it is already the next morning, less than 20 minutes before 6 a.m. Faber hurriedly dresses and drives toward the lighthouse control room. Of course, he is not going to bring David back, but to send the signal to the submarine before 6 a.m. He speeds all the way, but ultimately misses the time. The German submarine closes its communication window promptly at 6 a.m. Just as the unwilling Faber frantically tries again, Tom is awakened and enters the room to question him.
The hell are you doing?
Meanwhile, Lucy, now awake, takes her son to the seaside to enjoy the view, but suddenly notices a familiar figure floating in the distance. Lucy hurriedly sets her child down and runs over, only to discover the body of her husband who never returned that night. She cannot believe that the disabled David has fallen off a cliff. In panic, Lucy settles her son and prepares to go to the lighthouse control room for help, but then sees Faber returning outside the window. Before he even enters, Faber speaks to Lucy.
Your husband refuses to come back. He and Tom have been drinking and...
In that instant, Lucy freezes and understands everything. She struggles to control her emotions, revealing nothing, and cautiously probes him.
Have you just seen David?
Just now, yes. Where are you going?
I thought I'd better get David. He really mustn't drink so much.
He told me to fetch him at tea time. Leave him till then. Let's have a picnic.
Lucy knows that she cannot do anything that goes against the will of the man before her. She agrees to all of Faber's arrangements and, taking her child, goes with him to the seaside for a picnic. By nightfall, Lucy has already devised a way to escape. She puts enough sedative into her son's milk and, in front of Faber, insists that the child sleep on the living room sofa that night. To do this, she deliberately shows a shy expression, and none of it raises Faber's suspicion. Next, Lucy dances with danger, waiting in torment for the chance to escape. And this is the very scene where the story begins. Finally breaking free from Faber's control, Lucy rushes into the lighthouse control room without hesitation. She calls out Tom's name, hoping to get help immediately, but what she sees is his lifeless body. Clearly, Faber has already silenced him before leaving. In despair, she can only operate the radio herself. Fortunately, After only a few attempts, her distress signal is received. It turns out that since losing track of Needle at the fishing port, MI5 has focused on the most suspicious waters around Storm Island, but has been unable to establish contact. During that time, the radio at the lighthouse control room happens to be under repair. At this very moment, Faber, who has been chasing her, arrives outside the control room. For him, dealing with Lucy is no longer the most important matter. This night, establishing contact with the German submarine is his mission above all else. For this, he will stop at nothing, as his footsteps draw closer and closer, and he is about to break in. Lucy, with no other choice, takes a desperate stand and pulls the trigger. After the gunshot, Faber does not dare to act rashly again and instead tries to persuade her with softer words.
Lucy, I know you don't have any shells left, and I'm going to open the door. I'm not going to hurt you, Lucy, I promise.
Amid her heavy breathing, a glimmer of hope suddenly appears. The distress signal she sent has received a response. Lucy eagerly reports the danger she is in, but the instructions she receives leave her in complete despair.
Now there's something I want you to do. It's absolutely essential. You must destroy your radio. Over.
The cunning Faber uses fire to lure Lucy away and takes her son hostage.
There's a bottle of whiskey in the other room, Lucy. Would you bring it to me, please?
Singvogel, here is die Nadel. Kommen.
Hearing Faber urgently sending signals, Lucy instantly understands why she had been told to destroy the radio, but it is already too late. At this critical moment, Lucy removes a light bulb, causing a short circuit, and her fingers are severely burned in the process. Looking at Lucy's resolute expression, Faber reveals his inner helplessness.
I did what I had to do. It cannot be undone. I'm sorry.
For a top spy, this is a fatal mistake. He has broken the iron rule of leaving no survivors. Perhaps, just as he once told her, he loves her, but one thing is certain. At this moment, Lucy hates him. Even after being shot, Faber does not give up and runs toward the sea. Even in death, he must complete Needle's ultimate mission. At this moment, Lucy lets out a final, desperate cry. She fires the bullet that severs all love and hatred. Struggling, Faber finally collapses on the boat that will never set sail.